Hi, and welcome to a special episode of the Knitter's Party podcast. I'm Megan, and today I wanted to do just a quick episode talking about my yarn stash. If you saw my yarn haul for Egypt video, which I made several months back, I had showed you every bit of yarn that I had brought to Egypt. Now that we're about halfway through our trip, I wanted to do sort of an update video showing you what I have left, as well as what projects I have planned for them during the rest of my time here in Egypt. If you can hear some background noise, I do apologize. They are doing construction. They are building the metro station right at my front doorstep. So you can do what my landlord tells me and just ignore it. Thanks, great. Let's get right into it. I have two sections today. The first section is going to be sort of my luxury yarns. The second section I'm gonna do is my knit pick stash here on the bottom shelf. So let's get right into it and start off with my first set of yarn. These two skeins here are Malabrigo Dos Tierras in the colorway Matisse Blue. And now this yarn is 50% merino wool and 50% baby alpaca. It's a DK weight yarn and it is 210 yards per skein. I have two skeins of these ready to go for a beautiful project. It took me a long time to find what I wanted to make, but in the end, I decided on making the Lithos shawl by Melina Hammy, I'm sorry. It's a really beautiful shawl. I'll put a picture in here. Got some nice lace work to it, a lot of great stockinette stitch to show off this beautiful blue yarn, and I'm really excited about it. It looks like a nice sort of drapey lightweight shawl. So that is going to be made with my Malabrigo Dos Tierras DK yarn in the colorway Matisse Blue. Moving right along, I've got these two beautiful skeins of Malabrigo Rios, and these are pure superwash wool, pure merino superwash, I'm sorry, and this is a worsted weight yarn in the colorway Archangel, and Sunset. Now, I purchased these two together because they just looked absolutely beautiful, but I hadn't found the right project. I decided to make sort of a winter hat and mitten set. And so I personally live in Egypt and or in San Diego when I'm back in the States. But I've got family in Michigan and in like northern Canada and Edmonton region, and so I will always have good use for a hat. So I'm going to be making the Mochi Fair Isle hat by Sunny Scrivener. It's got some nice color work, and I feel like these are nice high contrast yarns. And so I'm going to be making that hat. Depending how much yarn I have left over, I'm either going to make a giant pom-pom with the rest of the yarn or sort of a matching mitten set. I might end up having to pick up a skein of perhaps white or some contrasting color in order to do a little bit of Fair Isle mittens, but I'm really trying to avoid purchasing a new skein to complete a set. So that is what I have planned for my two skeins of beautiful Malabrigo Rios in the colorway Archangel here and the colorway Sunset. This is basically my favorite color in the whole wide world. So you'll see. Awesome. The next thing I've got here are two skeins of Cascade Ultra Pima. It's a DK weight cotton yarn from Cascade, of course. 220 yards per skein. I know this information off the top of my head because I've used this yarn so many times for so many different projects. I actually just finished a really beautiful shirt called the Galaxia Lace Top by Vera Sanin. If you didn't see my last episode, my last podcast episode, take a look over there and I'll show you my beautiful top that I had made. But I have so much yarn left over because I originally planned a long sleeve cardigan out of this yarn and decided to make a short sleeve lacy top instead. So I've got two full skeins plus a little bit more that I'm making something with now. And so this yarn will definitely become a few more knitted knockers by knittedknockers.org. They are prosthetic breast breasts that are given to women who've had a mastectomy or double mastectomy who are unable to receive reconstructive surgery. So this is a really wonderful charity. If you've never knit for charity but you're looking to join, definitely check out their information. I will link it in the box below, but I will be making many more knockers sizes A through double D in order to send these out to the knittedknockers.org charity. I will be saving a little bit of this for a very special penguin for myself. I'm sorry, a very special project for myself. I'm going to be making my own personal pattern of Sgt. Pepper's penguin. I'm going to be making a red penguin named Thor. So I will be saving a little bit left, maybe 50 grams of this yarn I will be saving for a penguin in my future, but the rest of it will absolutely become knitted knockers for charity. Looking forward to that. Going right along, I've got this incredible skein of yarn. This is the yarns of Richard DeVries, 100% superwash wool. It's a fingering weight wool yarn, 100% merino, 220 yards, and this is in their colorway Patina. It's only a 50 gram skein, however, and so with 220 yards, I certainly can't make a pair of socks. I can't make a larger project like a hat or anything like that. So these will definitely become fingerless mitts. In fact, these will be the, excuse my pronunciation here, Kujailin Fingerless Mitts by Tina Ku. And it's got these lovely little baubles. And the reason I chose it for this yarn is because the main sample for this pattern is actually knit up in this beautiful bright orange colorway. And so how can you not see that a sample is knit up in the yarn you have essentially and not want to make it yourself? And so it looks like I have exactly enough yarn for it, which means I'll be able to use up every last meter and yard of this to get a really wonderful project. So I'm quite excited about that. And I'm just really looking forward to knitting all of these different projects. I've got 4 months left in Egypt, and I think I have enough yarn to let me go through this time. If I don't, I know where to purchase yarn here in Cairo. And if I do have leftover yarn, no big deal. I'll bring a little bit home and stash and, make it a lovely project a little later on. Okay, the last yarn I'm going to show in this first section of luxury yarns is this giant cone that I picked up at a market, a bazaar here in Cairo. I was told by the man that it was 100% silk, but in fact, there is no silk in this. It is 100% polyacrylic. I should have known by the price tag. This whole cone was maybe like 150 pounds, which is about $8. No, it was less than that. I think it was like 70 or 80 pounds. It was a dirt cheap yarn. And so I thought I was getting a steal on silk. Instead, I was getting a steal on polyacrylic. No big deal. It's a beautiful gold colorway. This did not have a label. It did not have any information about it. In fact, he just weighed the cone and he said it's only 200 grams. I can't believe that that's possible. This looks more like 300 to 400 grams in my opinion, but I have no idea. I'm not sure what I'm going to make with it yet. I want to make a project using all of it. I've worked with a yarn like this before and it was not very nice to work with. And so I'm thinking I don't want to do cables, maybe lace would look a little bit better, but being acrylic, I don't think it's going to block out very well. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to be doing with this yet, but considering I purchased it here in Cairo, maybe I will, make a nice souvenir thing. I actually think I might have enough for a very light, airy, lacy cardigan. And so I might do something like that. I'll insert a picture of the one I'm thinking of, but I don't know if I'm going to do that one or not yet. So yeah, I do have 4 skeins of some Egyptian cotton yarn that I also picked up at the same market as this polyacrylic yarn. I will be making a cardigan out of this. Haven't even begun looking for patterns, but this is going to definitely be a beautiful souvenir knit piece that I will be wearing for decades, I hope. And so I want to find the right project. I'm not going to rush the process, and I'm just going to knit something that strikes my fancy. But I love this sort of boysenberry color, and I think it looks nice against my hair, things like that. Good. So these are my sort of expensive yarns that I mostly picked up in Canada. I purchased a lot of these in River City Yarns in Edmonton, Alberta. I also picked up a couple beautiful skeins, specifically this Malabrigo dos Tierras. I picked this up at my local yarn store in Clarkston, Michigan called the Knitter's Nest. Hi ladies, if you watch, hey, nice little shout out. They are such an awesome shop. If you are anywhere in like Oakland County, Michigan, and you're a knitter, definitely check their store out, the Knitter's Nest in Clarkston. Okay, that's enough of a shout out. I swear I'm not like being paid by them. Okay, let's move on to section 2, which is my knit picks shelf here. I bought so much knit picks yarn coming to Egypt. I think I spent maybe $150 to $200 on knit picks yarn before I came. And I have knit through quite a bit of it, to be honest. I've made a couple of beautiful shawls. I made a sweater. I've got a bunch of other things on the projects right now in my needles. And so we're going to talk about the things I have not yet started, and we will get right into it. Starting here, I have 3 skeins of this Knit Picks Brava Bulky. 100% acrylic yarn, bulky weight. I would call this more of a heavy worsted personally, but this is going to, this is in the colorway Wine, by the way. So this is 136 yards of premium acrylic. It's actually really soft and squishy. For being acrylic, I find that the Brava line of acrylic yarns is actually fantastic. If you are interested in acrylic yarn, I made a video for the Brava worsted acrylic yarn from Knit Picks. Gave them 5 out of 5 stars. I have nothing bad to say. This is a really wonderful yarn. And I will be making a baby knit out of this for my sister, who just gave birth to beautiful baby Devon. She is such a delight, and this yarn is going to become a latte baby coat by Lisa Shemry. I just love how it has this really beautiful border along the front. It's like a rickrack stitch. I've got some cute buttons to go along with it. My sister picked out this color yarn. I hope she remembers picking out bright red, because this is not in her wheelhouse. She is very much blacks and whites and taupes and neutrals. So to have a bright red baby coat, I hope she remembers what she was getting herself into. So that's with my 3 skeins of Knit Picks Brava Bulky. Moving right along, I have 3 skeins. I just dropped one on the floor. Don't tell. I have 3 skeins of Knit Picks Gloss DK. This is a 70% merino wool and 30% silk yarn, DK weight yarn. I believe 123 yards for a 50-gram ball. I've picked up 3 of these, and I will be making the Green Willow Cowl by Elizabeth Doherty. It's also got sort of a rickrack stitch, and this is going to be made for my mother-in-law. She picked out these colors, and this yarn is so luxurious. The little luster you get from the silk is really beautiful, and I know she's going to love it. This is in the colorway Jade, and 3 skeins is just enough to make a beautiful cowl that you can either double around or wear it, close up to the neck, or let it drape open on the front of your body, and it's going to be absolutely gorgeous. That's also a project where you can basically, it's knit flat and then you seam it together. So I will knit every last yard out of this yarn and not have any left over, which is exactly what I want. I hate having those little bits and bobs left over. What can you do with 10 yards of DK weight silk yarn that's non-superwash? You know what I mean? So that's that. Gorgeous, gorgeous yarn, beautiful colorway. I also have 5 balls of this Knit Picks Paragon. It's a sport weight yarn. This is the colorway Enchanted, and this is 50% merino wool, 25% baby alpaca, and 25% silk. And this is a sport weight yarn with a very high twist. I also made a yarn review video about this yarn if you're interested. I will link it to my channel as well. It is absolutely stunning. It has amazing stitch definition. So these 5 skeins are going to be a Stonecroft shawl by Judy Marples. I already knit one of these out of the same yarn, but in a different colorway for my mother, and she absolutely loved it. This pattern has a beautiful lace border at the edge, a nice little leaf design, and then tons of stockinette and lacy edging, a big thick border of lace edging. It's absolutely stunning. The shawl I made for my mother was incredible, so we decided to have mother-daughter matching shawls. And so that's what I'm going to be making with my Knit Picks Paragon yarn. Okay, moving along. I have 2 balls and a failed project, which I probably will likely be frogging. And so I have 4 balls of this Galileo, Knit Picks Galileo sport weight yarn in the colorway Valentine. And this is a 50% merino wool, 50% viscose from bamboo yarn. So it also has a nice shine and luster to it, based from the bamboo. It's not quite as luxurious as the Knit Picks Paragon, but that's to be expected. I mean, realistically, silk versus bamboo, you know, silk and alpaca are going to win out every single time. But overall, this is a fabulous yarn to work with as well. I don't really have a pattern in mind. In fact, the reason I'm going to be frogging 2 more balls of this is because I'm actually sort of trying to design my own V-shaped shawl. So not a triangle shawl, but a true V-shaped shawl using sport weight yarn here. And so I'm trying to experiment with this. I chose this yarn because it's luxurious and it's shiny and it would make a beautiful sample knit, but it's not too expensive. So if the project fails, as it did before, or if it just never really comes to fruition, I'm not out a lot of money. And so that's what this project is going to be, is a V-shaped shawl sometime in the future. I'm still thinking about it, but it's not at the top of my list. All right, the last thing on here that I'm going to talk about is Knit Picks Luminance yarn in their colorway Benevolence. This is 100% silk in a 50 gram hank like this. And this is 439 yards of pure silk yarn. Unfortunately, the sun went behind a cloud, so you can't see how shiny this is, but it is actually really lustrous. It's beautiful, it's shiny, and this is going to become a mermaid song shawl by Susanna I.C. Officially, it's a Harry Potter inspired shawl, but it's knit in lace weight yarn, 100% silk, and I actually have some beads. It's a beaded shawl, and I have some beautiful beads that are going to go with it. Can't decide whether I want to use some indigo blue beads with this or some green beads. I think the blue is actually a higher contrast, surprisingly. I picked out these green beads thinking it would be perfect, but now that I look at it, I think the blue beads would add a little bit more depth, be in the same color palette, and the green might just fade away into this yarn. So I'm not sure which one I will do. This is sort of a last project that I want to do. Just because it's 100% silk, I really want to savor this, and so I wouldn't want to do this towards the end of my trip when I might be you know, pressed for time, or I won't be able to focus really on what I'm knitting. This should theoretically be the most luxurious knit I've ever made, and so I want to make it that, that experience. And doing so, I'm going to have a really beautiful shawl to show. Good. So I hope you've enjoyed this special little episode of me breaking down my stash here in Cairo. I do have a little bit of flexibility for some open ideas. If you have any ideas of what I could potentially do with 4 balls of sport weight yarn, do let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have any really good suggestions for projects in general, if you don't like one of the projects that I sort of have on the docket, give me some alternate suggestions. I'm definitely not set in my ways. This is just what I've got in my Ravelry queue at the moment, but I sort of change my mind every time I look back at my queue and every time I look at the yarn and think, oh, I could make a better project. You know what I mean? So that's it. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. You can always find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Meg311yo. And of course, you can subscribe to my channel, like this video if you can. It definitely helps to support your favorite YouTube content. So not only for me, but for everybody, every knitter, every podcaster that you like and leave a comment on their video. It helps other people to find the channel so that we can sort of expand our network a little bit more. You guys are awesome. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time on the Knitter's Party Podcast. Bye.